I'm Dan Wilson. I work on many of the emerging technologies at Progress. We bring newer products to market. Chat is a relatively new industry in general. We have a very compelling product that I just can't wait to show you all about. And also Microapps, which you may have heard a little bit in the last talk. I've got a bit more of a deep dive so you can see how it works. There were some great questions about it last time, and so finally I can show you some of the ways that it works. As a reminder, here's the Progress stack. Without boring you to death, you probably need the stuff on top, either now or in the future. You probably have to connect to the things on the bottom. We do all the stuff in the middle so you don't have to, so you can focus on what makes your applications great, because that's the part we don't know. On with it then. Chat. There are about 2,000 chat vendors. That's a lot. If you ask someone if they do chat, they'll say yes. We just downloaded this open source package yesterday and have set up a business. What would you like? That is not what we do. So if you imagine chat as a quadrant, because I conveniently have a quadrant in front of us, there's 4 general types of chat. Firstly, you have your general question and answer chat. This is more informational. It's more explicit information, and there's not a lot of interactivity. But someone may have a question, so they type this question in. You use natural language processing to figure out what the question actually is, and then find the answer that they're looking for. We kind of do this, but I don't think this is a very hard problem. The next type of chat is customer dialogue. You've probably used this. You go to a website, it says, hey, do you want to chat with us? And you're like, yeah, I do. So you start chatting, and someone chats with you, and it's basically like texting, but on a website, and maybe you get your questions answered. Maybe you don't. People want this because they can have their support staff do 5 things at once, and who doesn't want to do 5 things at once? Once again, not a very hard problem. We've been doing this since the mid-2000s with things like long polling and comment and things of that nature. However, if you need this kind of chat, we are not for you. Thirdly, personalized engagement. What this is about kind of enhancing a conversation with stuff that the company knows about you. So if you want to do something, they may look up your records and see you always go to Spain for your holiday, and so they might offer you things of that nature. We don't really do that either. What we do is what we call guided task completion. So what this is imagine you want to accomplish a task. Like imagine this. I had to get my driver's license renewed. And in the US, the way that works is it's handled by a state bureaucracy, so to speak. And I was being proactive, being a type A guy. 5 months ahead, I said I need to get my driver's license renewed, and I wanted an appointment. Otherwise, you stand in a line for a long time without an appointment. So I called him up, was on hold for 37 minutes, not that I was counting, and was told by the nice lady that they had appointments, no problem, in 6 months. I'm like, but I kind of need one before that. And they said, well, there just isn't any within a 60-mile radius. You have to go stand in line. So I did. It was a great 5 hours. I had great conversations with the people in front and the back of me, and then it took me 5 minutes to get my driver's license renewed. Great process. Love to do it again in 10 years. The reason why that's important is not that you feel sorry for me, but if you do, that's okay. But more that if I had a choice to not use the state agency, I would have done it. Because they stole from me. Now, as a monopoly, well, what are you going to do? But if I was using a company, say, for credit cards or vacations or whatever, and they kept me on hold for 37 minutes just to tell me we can't help you, I'm not going to like them very much. And I have choices these days. So with guided task completion, what would have happened is I would start a chat. Hey, what do you want? I want to renew my driver's license. When? By the end of the year. Too bad. 2 minutes later, I'm like, okay, this is not a good use of time. But we could have looked up this data in their system, found the closest place to me, and offered me choices in an automated fashion. So guided task completion is about completing user goals in an automated way, generally connecting to systems, pulling and pushing data. Think of it like ordering products. You could order a product through guided task completion. The right product just for you. dig into that more in a minute, but I want to differentiate the chats because there's so many chat vendors out there and so many people who think they want chat. It's important to know why. So here are 4 great reasons for chat. I was thinking of that driver's license thing when I came up with images. See if you can guess which image I picked as I thought of it. But if you'd like to improve customer service, maybe guided task completion is for you. You can look up data, you can write data into other systems, kicking off orders and returns. Returns are a big thing that usually require customer service time. But usually if you're in charge of a support center or a call center, they're probably spending a lot of their time on repeatable tasks, and these are great choices for automation. Maybe you want to provide 24/7 availability but don't want to pay staff. I talked to a real estate company who builds software for landlords, let's say, and their main problem is they have all these people that speak all these different languages, and they may have a problem in their apartment and they don't know how to notify the right person. Either no one's available because it's at night, pipes tend to burst at awkward moments, or they don't speak a language the support people speak. So a guided task completion that allows multiple languages would suit them fine because you wouldn't have to pay people to sit there. Any type of customer self-service would be a good choice, product configurations, or support automation. So if you have needs like this, you would want to consider guided task completion. So here's kind of the structure of how it works with our chat, aptly named in a creative way, convey chat. So at the top here, you have your chat app. This is what the user is actually using, their interface. Now this interface can be on a website, on a mobile app, through Viber, through Facebook. We're working out Alexa now, so you can actually talk to it. Doesn't matter. The point is it's a chat app. That would basically point to the convey chat kind of realm, if you will, which points to convey, which has the capability to point to all this other stuff and access it, pushing and pulling. So that's kind of the stack. Any questions about that? It's pretty high level, so I doubt there's some yet, but we'll make it more complicated in a minute. We use a process called the cognitive flow to make this happen. Chat's actually interesting because people are unpredictable and they may ask their questions in different ways. So we have technology that sort of uses AI and machine learning to intuit what someone's trying to accomplish. And they don't have, this is really important, they don't have to use the chat in a sequential fashion. Have you ever dialed a support number and it says, press 1 for support, press 2 for sales? By the time it's press 3, I have no idea what press 1 was. I'm looking at my email. I'm a flawed individual. I don't know what to do. With our chat, you don't have to follow a sequence. You can kind of meander your way to the goal. That's one reason why we call it guided task completion. So we'd use our AI and ML to figure out what the intent is, and then process that. Maybe we have to access the short-term bot memory or the long-term bot memory, and then we would generate a conversation and then deliver responses. Of course, to get those responses, we can connect to a variety of systems and do processing, and you can kind of control the logic here. But essentially, that's the high-level process of how the chat works. There are 72 languages we support. There's got to be more languages than that, but 72 is a big number. I guarantee what you need is in there. So if you have a case where you need to support staff or customers from a variety of languages, this can be a lot cheaper than trying to hire someone that speaks a not in high demand language that you have to provide for. We also provide chat interface components. Now you may have never thought of this before, but if you want someone to follow the process, you have to keep it easy for them. And so there are things like time picking, which is a difficult problem to solve apparently. I've written several time pickers and I've never found one that works great. Trying to do one on a mobile phone is even harder. So we ship time pickers, date pickers, quick replies, which are like canned replies. You're probably starting to see this now on your SMS apps. I know we're all starting to kind of sound very vanilla when we respond back to each other. Okay, and I never spell out okay unless I'm using the quick reply, and then apparently I like all 4 letters. Login forms as well. So you'll ship with components that you need to build great chat applications that your users can actually use. And then here are the channels you can support. Now you can support all of these. It's not all or nothing. You know, which ones are most important to your business? Probably web for sure, possibly mobile. Depending on your kind of business, Facebook or Viber could be important. And then voice is also emerging as an interesting choice. I have 2 kids, one's 6 and one's 8. And for about the last year, they've been learning Alexa through osmosis. I don't know how they know what it can do other than they just start talking to it. But they're very competent with this, and they are incompetent with a laptop. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know how to work a laptop, but they can make Alexa make announcements and play music and tell it stories. And so, you know, I think voice is a very interesting channel these days that we haven't used enough of, because it's just so natural to engage with a system. However, as I said before, humans are nonlinear and random, so chat is a hard problem on voice. Because how you say something, you could say it 50 different ways. And somehow the chat has to agree on what you're saying and then process it. At the end of the day, computers really are dumb. We tell them what to do. Now with our chat, we make that easy. One of the ways we make it easy is we ship memory. Now this is a key thing to keep in mind, because the last thing I want to do is tell you something 2 times. And if you're a chat and I have to repeat myself, I'm not going to use it. Now, what does repeat yourself mean? Well, it easily means in the same conversation, I don't want to type the same thing twice. But it also means if I tell a company something ever, I never want to tell them again. Like, my least favorite experience is I call a credit card company and they say, "What's your credit card number?" And I rattle off these very lengthy digits. And then I get transferred to someone else who says, "What's your credit card number?" I'm like, do you talk to the people that work with your company? Like, why am I doing this 2 times? Now, with Convey Chat, you have a short-term memory that'll hold on to information that was discussed during the current conversation. You also have the ability to have long-term memory, so your chat can kind of span multiple different time occurrences. So I might start a chat with you today, get distracted, pick it up 2 weeks from now. You'll still know what we were talking about, which makes me as a user very happy. But not only that, of course, chat, let's not call that the terminal application in all cases. What if you're applying for a mortgage? Well, the first thing I want to know is it worth applying for a mortgage? And so I might contact the company via chat because I read some weird article or I'm having a discussion with my wife. And I said, "What are your current rates?" They said, "Oh, they're whatever, whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, great, I want to start an application." I am not doing this application on my phone. It's way too many data fields. I can't type on my phone anyway. Not a good scene. I'm not doing it with voice either. Like, maybe I'm on a train and don't want people to hear my special little social security number. So I want to pick this up over the web. It's very easy, because of Convey, to put this data from the chat into the long-term memory and expose that via APIs to the mobile application or the web application. These might be applications you already have, and you're just accessing Convey to get at this data. This is very easy to do. And so you can build an integrated experience that makes your company look like it talks to each other without having to put in a whole lot of extra work. The user can start with chat, go to mobile, do some stuff, go back to chat, go back to the web application, and the experience is seamless, meaning they'll use more of it. And you'll have happy customers who will stay with you longer. And when I say customer, I could also mean internal customers. Like, your employees are customers, and they have choices too. Like, how many people do you have to say, "No, go put in a ticket"? Because they don't want to put in a ticket, they want to email you, because that's cheaper for them. They don't like the ticket system. So people will find more expensive ways to get their jobs done. So once again, with the chat, you have the ability to power a variety of experiences, even that have nothing to do with chat, so that your company can provide an integrated experience. Now let's talk about what makes a good chat. Getting a chat right requires a different way of thinking. Humans have this great ability to think other things are human that are not human. Like, have we ever looked at clouds and said, "Well, there's a face"? It's not a face, it's a cloud. But we generally see human behavior in other things. And if you're interacting with a chat, they're going to assume that this is a human construct. the goal of guided task completion is that it is not a human construct, because the chat can handle 10,000 conversations at once. I can only handle 2. So you have to be careful, because you're creating a persona here. What's the mood of a vacation shopper, and how should you respond? What about someone shopping for funeral services? Should you respond in a happy way, very eager to suit their needs? No, you should be a bit more reserved and somber. So think of the context of the chat and how the user is going to be feeling when they're using this, and try to match the bot personality and how it responds to that mood. One of the cool things you can do with Convey Chat is provide several different responses. And so you might provide 3 responses: okay, got it, and no problem. And then the chat will randomize these and give the user a more natural kind of conversation. So that's one of the tools you can use to provide a personality to your bot. Also, remember, it's tempting to think of processes as sequential. When we're building mobile apps and web apps, we do create sequential processes. With chat, a sequential process is annoying. Just think of the phone tree. Short-term memory will help you, and also Convey Chat has a way where a user can switch their conversational intent midstream, and the chat will pick that up and get them into the different goal, assuming they want to switch. So it's not like it forces them in and makes them restart. It'll work with them drifting towards goals. And then lastly, you want to train your chatbot. One way to train Convey Chat is to feed it lots of data. So you might plug it into your customer relationship manager system so it can learn what products people like and what products people like those people like, etc. Or it knows what products that customer might be returning because they've ordered them in the last month. These are ways you can train the bot so it can act smarter. And then lastly, of course, monitor and train. Here's a selection of use cases that you might consider Convey Chat for. And then I'll take a couple questions on this, and then we're going to slip into microapps. So if you have a question, go ahead and ask it. Any questions? Sweet. Microapps. So microapps are a new kind of thing. They've emerged in the last year or 2. There's only a handful of vendors actually doing this. It's a really interesting technology. The best way to think of it is if you remember portals or iGoogle. Anyone use iGoogle? Nobody? One guy. Thank you, sir. Thank you for raising your hand. That was the best thing ever. You could kind of create your own page and go to your Google page, and it would show you all the little bits and bobs you wanted. The stocks you cared about, news from certain places you cared about. And it would be information that you as a user were interested in. You could personalize your page. Companies did a lot of these in the mid-2000s, and then for some reason it fell out of favor, I think with the rise of these kind of SaaS enterprise apps. But the concepts are the same. What you want is one location for people to go, rather than a bunch of locations. You want focused functionality, so keep the user on task, don't distract them. You want them to be able to accomplish their jobs efficiently, and you want to develop in an efficient manner. So you've actually used microapps. So here's an example of one. Have you used this one? So you type in weather in Google, and it shows a little microapp. Did you know that was a microapp? Probably not, but it is. It has some limited capability here. You want to click on a day, it'll show you the weather for that day. You want to change to precipitation, you can do that. Now there is stuff that you can't do. And for that, you would go to the weather application. But for 95% of what you want, this little micro app is perfect. Here's another one. Flights. Done this one? I use this all the time now, it's great. So you type in some kind of information in Google, it detects you want to talk about flights, it shows you the top carriers, what the prices are, when they're going. Now if you look at the bottom, I don't know how noticeable this is, but you can kind of escape hatch into a more fully featured application here. But once again, it's delivering you what you need in a personalized fashion. So the point of a micro app, is not to do everything. It's to do something. And it's encapsulated, and it's limited, but it provides value. So when you're building this micro app, for example, you're only worried about this construct on the screen here. You're only taking on this amount of work to build the micro app. So 4 reasons to use it. One great reason is, let's say that you have a bunch of different apps across your workforce, and some of these apps have lived a long time, and no one uses most of this one app, but they need this one key component. And so you have to drag this application forward for years, fixing it, dealing with any security issues, framework upgrades, worrying about what it connects to for just a small piece of functionality. What you could do is decompose that into a micro app and then get rid of that other application. Maybe you have an acquisition that you made, and every company has their own HR app, and so now you have 2 of them. You have to kind of consolidate them. Consolidating apps is hard because one app does something one way, one app does it another way. Once again, you can decompose the specific functions into micro apps and get rid of both of these applications, or get rid of the fact that users have to directly use those applications. A third thing is so that you can keep staff focused. Makes no sense to have 6 different internal applications. People would just use 0 of them because they would all have their own little branding and their own little UI and their own little navigation, and you'd have to tell people they have to install these, and some would only get 3 and some would get 0. But if you have one app, it's easy to get people to use it. And then lastly, with micro apps, you can consolidate the security, compliance, and rights management in a single place. This means when you accidentally let an employee go, you can cut off their access in one spot instead of having to notify 15 different systems holders to cut off 15 different applications. Applications built 10 years ago probably don't do security and role management the way they do now. At some point, we have to clean this up or deal with security holes. Micro apps consolidate it, making your life easy. So let's look at how we do it. This kind of card functionality is a good example of micro apps. What's important here is each user would have their own customized view. Some of these micro apps you would get because of what you are, by role, and some you would get by who you are, like what you want to see. And so I might choose micro apps that my coworkers don't, but we both might get the same micro apps pushed from our company because of the type of work that we do. The cool thing here is that IT only has to maintain the micro app, meaning what's contained in this card, which is a lot easier to wrap your brain around than some amorphous big application with lots of functionality. The key thing here to think of is, what is a user goal? And that probably makes for a good micro app. So like the weather app, the user goal is it going to rain on my face today? I want to know that. I don't need to know if it's going to rain in 30 days. So the micro app didn't ship with that capability. It only shipped with what the user is trying to accomplish. So that's how you would think of your micro apps. Now, in IT, we've kind of gone through these various code reuse ideas over the years. The first one is copy-paste, or copy-pasta, or development by Stack Overflow, however you want to call it. But basically, you would reuse code by copying and pasting. Great idea, gets you farther along. Now you have bugs everywhere because that one bug is now spread in 10 different apps. So it does work, but it's not amazing. Then we're like, well, let's make libraries and share those. But what happens if my code is written in one language and another team has been working in a different language? They can't use my library, can they? So now we have 2 libraries that kind of do the same thing. So that doesn't really work. So then we thought, you know what we'll do? We'll build APIs. And that kind of works, but what happens when one API consumer needs something different than another API consumer needs? Now you have a different API, maybe you choose to version them now, and you have different versions of the API sitting out there, and really what you get is complexity at the API level. So what we're promoting is functional sharing. What is the function? Like, is it check the weather? Is it look up an employee? Is it request time off? Is it reserve a parking space? Like, let's share at that level. Because then you don't have to worry about what API it's using or what language it's coding in. You're sharing at a functional level. And these are higher level capabilities, meaning you're sharing more of the overall work across the organization. Do you have a question? No. So what we provide is all the things you need for a mobile application. Authentication, push, offline support, all these things on the left. What you provide is just the user interface and the business logic. Everything else comes out of the box for you. So you'd have this container application that you can brand, and you would build your microapps, and those would get loaded into the user's application when they use it. The architecture looks kind of like this. So there's the container application. And it provides all those utilities that make the app the app. All the, let's say it keeps the lights on, so to speak. You would build one or more microapps, hopefully more than one, and then those would sit inside of the Microapps Platform. We also have a mediation layer. This is where you would connect your existing systems for your integrations, because generally speaking, most microapps push or pull data from somewhere, so that's where you'd handle that. And you can extend these through microservices. This is where you might put specific logic for a specific microapp in a nice, tidy place. So you don't have to worry about what to provision or where to put the code. There's a spot for that. And it all kind of comes together with the out-of-the-box connectivity that you get with Kinvey. Now with the platform, you have a console, which is like a register, or like a registry of all your microapps in the ecosystem. And here you, as the person in charge, would control who sees what and where. You have the ability to get at all the connectors. There's a development and management console to make development easier. And once again, we also ship the container. So it's all provided for you as an integrated experience. All you've got to do is figure out what you want to do, build the user interface logic, and you're done. Now, if you think about this problem, those of you who were here half an hour ago, you're going to get this 2 times. But imagine that you're going to build apps for the departments in your company. And all departments want some functionality. For simplicity, I've just said basically one functionality takes about a month. And so there's basically 3 work years worth of work here and 6 different applications. Now, how fun is it to try to get employees to do 6 different things? It's not going to be easy. They're just not going to do it. So you won't get the compliance you want, and you'll have 3 work years involved in this. Now, if you decide to build one super app, you avoid a lot of the redundancy in deploying and maintaining and things of that nature, because you're building one app. But now you've got the political problem of all these departments that don't agree, who want their thing to be first. They want to have the spot in the nav. It should be their colors and blah, blah, blah. Not to mention half the people are on vacation at a given point in time. And so keeping this in sync is kind of a ridiculous people problem. If you use microapps, it looks more like this. So if you built 6 apps, we called it 3 years. One app, we called it 1.5 years, and some project manager is going to quit at the end of it. With microapps, it takes about 4 months. As each functionality, on average, will take about 2.5 days. Because remember, your only job is the user interface and business logic to complete a user task. You don't have to worry about security or deployment or roles or connectivity or any of that stuff, because we've provided that for you. You just provide the specificity. And the delivery is sent right to the user. So now it takes about 4 months to put all this together. Not to mention, if your business is going under what they call digital transformation, which is trying to become more nimble, more agile, and solve more internal problems, this is a cheaper way to solve many of those problems, meaning you can actually get to them. Because the other ways, as we've looked at, are a lot more expensive. So microapps can make you more nimble. They can help you deliver functionality you wouldn't get to. They can help your employees be much more successful, and frankly, save you a lot of time. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. If you have questions for us and don't want to share them now, just get with us, and we're happy to hear your ideas and your questions, and we'll talk through what we've got and see if the concept works for you. But I do thank you for coming. Up next is Rowdy, who who will talk about native script. So thank you. Yes, please. The question was, can you talk a bit more about security and how do you manage that and keep up with people trying to breach security? So part of security rests on your shoulders, obviously, as the IT person. But we make sure all data in transit and at rest is secured through AES. So it's very secure technology. Also, roles of who can access what are managed at a console level, so they're not buried inside source code. So you can review these rather easily and make sure they're how you want them. Compliance can take a look at it as well. And the whole process has security also built into the container level. So the data that's stored on the device is also secured. So from an infrastructure and application perspective, we provided those compliance and security measures so that you can sort of color within the lines and ensure your microapps are secure. Does that answer your question? Yeah, sure. Anyone else? Yes, sir. So I think the question is sort of expanded to what kind of analytics do you get with microapps and what can you do with it? And there are analytics built into the platform. So you can, as a product manager, decide how to orchestrate everything. I'm not sure if it'll sort of automatically sort things. I feel like that's sort of a managed process, but I could check for you. Good question. Anyone else? Rowdy. Before I turn the floor over, I just want to make an announcement. Mr. Crowdy was very kind and took this flight on short notice, only having a week to prepare. So I'd like to give him this bottle of champagne and our congratulations for his efforts. So thank you.
Thank you very much.